Fans of bigger Formula 1 grids, it's time to get your hopes up because a new team may actually be allowed to enter the championship in the near future. Governing body the FIA will look at launching a process that invites expressions of interest for prospective new teams to enter Formula 1. While this is no guarantee of an 11th team, or maybe even more, joining the grid, this is a clear shift from this time last year, when the FIA said it wasn't in a position to consider potential new entrants. As we explain what's going on and what happens next, let us know in the comments which teams you would like to see join the grid. And if you can like this video and subscribe to our channel as well, that would be much appreciated. The big news is that FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem says he's asked his team to look at launching an expressions of interest process for prospective new teams. A new team is something that F1 could easily attain if it wanted to, because it is a great time to have an entry. The budget cap, tweaks to how F1 prize money is distributed, and further changes to improve the competitive landscape of the championship make an entry more of a measured investment than arguably ever before. The surge in popularity means great exposure, and the hybrid engines and sustainable fuel push make for an obvious automotive marketing strategy. But any interested new teams have met a brick wall because F1 and the FIA haven't opened up a process for formal bids to be made and have generally seen more benefit in keeping F1 a closed shop. There hasn't been any new F1 team on the grid since Haas joined in 2016, and F1 pretty much spent the whole of 2022 indicating that extra teams were a nice idea in principle but weren't a priority as the championship looked to build up its so-called franchise model around the existing 10 entries. The idea has been that in a time of prosperity, teams should gain more and more investment, which means they'll be profit-making enterprises with increased funding and be more competitive, and the championship will grow alongside that. The concern is that a new team could dilute the pot that everyone gets their money from, risk being uncompetitive, and disappear without making any real contribution. That's why the latest Concord agreement, signed by all 10 existing teams in 2020, introduced a $200 million anti-dilution fund that would need to be paid by any new entrant and would be shared evenly among current competitors. This fee could be waived if there was unanimous agreement amongst the existing stakeholders, as a high-quality project that would bring value to F1 has always been welcome in theory. But until now, there has not been any indication of prospective entrants actually being formally reviewed. F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali even said as recently as November 2022 that they were not in the best position to discuss a real credible new entry. That's why Ben Sulayem's brief statement, which made no specific reference to any independent or manufacturer teams that might be interested, is a significant step forward towards the attitude changing. The exact details of the process Ben Sulayem is referring to are yet to be known, but it will mark the first new entry process in almost a decade. This came in December 2013 when F1 and the FIA sought to find a single new team, ultimately leading to the birth of Haas's F1 entry. It's worth stressing that in the past there has always been a condition from the FIA that if no applicant is considered suitable by both the FIA and the commercial rights holder, then no additional team will be selected. As we understand it, while the FIA has led this push for a formal process to begin, F1 itself and even the teams will still have a strong involvement when it comes to reviewing the expressions of interest and deciding if any of them are worth accepting. We need to wait for the FIA to officially publish a call for expressions of interest, as that usually makes various details public, such as the specific starting point for the new entry to join the championship, usually at least 1 full year away from the process beginning at the earliest. But in the meantime, we have a good idea of what prospective new teams will need to do to try to win a place on the grid. A formal expression of interest is a detailed process that requires the prospective team to be reasonably well advanced with its entry. They need to be able to show that a company has been incorporated with details of its administrative headquarters, plus the identity of all shareholders, and information on the relevant experience and capabilities, including technical experience, racing experience, facilities, equipment, and engineering resources. It's a bit of a hybrid of a sales pitch and a glorified job interview. In fact, a cover letter introducing the candidacy is usually a condition, as is a CV for each director and officer of the company. There will likely be an initial administration fee to pay of a few $1,000s, and any team that pays this and registers their interest by the deadline will be given precise terms of the selection process. Those that end up submitting full applications will have to fork out a much bigger fee, which was $130,000 the last time this happened. It shows just how seriously the FIA takes the process and effectively weeds out the least serious entries at the very start. A thorough due diligence investigation will follow, with the selection criteria including the technical ability and resources of the team, the ability to raise and maintain sufficient funding to participate at a competitive level, the team's experience, and its human resources. The FIA and F1 are essentially looking for guarantees of long-term stability and the value that the candidate may bring to the championship, with an added emphasis this time on avoiding the dilution that has been talked about so much over the last year or two. Though this is quite intensive, it's usually resolved quite quickly. After the deadline for full applications the last time this process was undertaken, a full decision was made within 3 weeks. In fact, the time from the official call for expressions of interest to the final decision being made was less than 3 months. So whenever Ben Sulayem's tweet turns into a formal FIA announcement, we can expect a relatively quick resolution to the whole process, even if it ends with no new team being selected after all. However we say this is going to sound really blunt, so we'll just come out with it. It's basically time for the Andrettis to put up or shut up. We don't mean to be disrespectful to a great racing family, it's just intended to reflect how many of F1 stakeholders will feel about easily the most vocal prospective entrant over the past 12 months or so. The Andrettis have taken an unusually public approach with their declarations of interest in an F1 team, a strategy that backfired once already with how it hurt negotiations with Sauber in late 2021 and definitely put noses out of joint among senior F1 personnel in 2022 as well. That approach to a would-be Andretti global team in 2024 has been unorthodox from the start and has perhaps undermined the basic headline points around such an entry that are really impressive. This includes the strength of the Andretti name, the experience of racing in various major series, especially IndyCar, the suggestion of an engine deal already being lined up with Renault, and the commitment to building a new headquarters in the United States. These things could and maybe should combine to make Andretti a perfectly legitimate option for a new F1 team that brings extra value on and off the track. Though the Andrettis claimed long ago to have submitted documents to the FIA, it's never been disclosed what they sent, to whom, or why. It's just been all talk, given there has been no formal entry process open. With that potentially changing, the Andrettis will need to put all their cards on the table. But they're not the only ones who have been sniffing around F1 in the past year or so, as we've heard of some other credible candidates too. In fact, we'll be running through some of those contenders in another video soon. If the FIA goes ahead with opening up this process, you can expect more names to come out publicly with their interest. But in the meantime, who would you like to see join the grid, whether they've been linked to F1 or not? Let us know in the comments and make sure you're subscribed to our channel to keep up to date with this story and all the other big ones in the world of Formula 1.